Well, it's nice to have you guys here. This is our first time we've done this, so hopefully it'll be very interactive and fun and very spontaneous, and that you'll really enjoy yourselves. So I'm just going to do some preliminary introductions before we get started. I just want to introduce the Career Center staff people. I'm Linda Favero, and I'm your moderator for today, or as some people like to call me, Oprah, or The View, whichever we prefer. I love a mic, can you tell? Anyway, so we launched this Alumni Career Services program here in the fall of 2008, and I'm responsible for directing this program. So that's me. And then Julie McKenzie was the woman that was sitting just outside when you registered. She's the program assistant here. And then we have Deb Sherrick, who came up from Eugene. For those of you that haven't, actually she's been there for 30 years, so it's possible you all have had some contact with her in the past 30 years. She's director of the Career Center and came up. And then Mandy Devereaux, can you wave, Mandy? Mandy's the lovely pregnant woman who is directing our employer relations. So that is the staff that is with you tonight. And then I wanted to introduce our volunteers. These are all people that are 2009 or 2008 graduates who have been a part of the program. So if you have any questions about, what their experience has been, please ask them. So you guys, I want you to wave. Emily Kahn, Jill Shellberg, she's back there, Kelsey Connect, Brooke Burris, and then Stephanie. We have a student that came up for today. There's Stephanie right over there. So thank you very much. They all volunteered to help welcome you and get you all situated. So thanks, you guys. So real briefly, what our program is, I mentioned that we started in the fall 2008. We primarily serve recent graduates, get launched up here, and also alumni in transition. So that's our main focus. We do everything from career counseling to job search groups to workshops to events. So we try to find something so that you can fit yourself into what's most comfortable for you. So we offer that variety here. We also create opportunities for alums to give back in a way as people are on their career path. So we actually have that's what these panelists are doing here today, is giving back to the university that gave them hopefully something that they valued as well. And then informational interviewing and all that. In fact, we do have a panelist that was here at our fall event. Where is she? Valerie. There's Valerie. So some of them even come back to these events. So that's always exciting too. So continuing to give in that way. So I encourage you to plug yourself in where you fit. I also wanted to thank our partners for tonight. The Alumni Association did all the publicity and marketing for us. And then the University of Oregon Portland, which is the academic programs here that kind of administer academic affairs, they gave us funding so that we could provide some additional resources for you tonight. The format for this evening is I'm going to ask some questions for about a half an hour, and then you guys can be thinking about what you are asking them, want to ask them, and then you'll also have that opportunity. At the end of that, we're going to have a raffle, so hopefully everyone put either their business card or wrote on a piece of paper in that bowl, and each one of these lovely women has offered to take one of you out to lunch. So if your name is drawn, you will get to go to lunch with one of these women. In addition, if you are of age, you will get a bottle of wine. So we're going to do, not in addition to the lunch, so we'll have 6 raffle winners. So a lot of raffle winners. So stick around for that. Also, you'll notice there is an evaluation form on your chair. Again, being a brand new program and with a marketing background that I have, it's always important to keep evaluating what we're doing and making sure that we're meeting the needs of our customers. So please do take the time to fill that out and give us feedback so that we continue to bring programs that are beneficial to you. Okay, so now to help the panelists out, we want to know who's in the audience. So I've got it broken down into 3 categories. So if you're a student or a 2009 grad, raise your hand. Okay, so now you know your audience. If you are an alum that is, or excuse me, a recent grad in the last 5 years, raise your hand. Okay, so anybody older than that or a community member, raise your hand. Okay, so we've got a little bit of everything. All right. Okay, so now you know your audience. Okay, so before I introduce our panelists, I was looking at their bios, And I have to say it's quite a privilege because I actually know, I have a personal connection to each one of these people. And I'm going to share with you what that personal connection is. And now they're all connected, and they didn't know each other before, but now they all have a connection. So that's what makes these things fun when you have a career that goes full circle. So we have 3 generations represented up here, and I'm a generational freak. So I love it when I bring multiple generations together. I think it's really fun. So we've got 3 generations up here. We have women from different disciplines, 4 different disciplines, so hopefully everyone found a place where they could plug themselves in here today. We have women from 4 different U of O programs. Again, a place where you can see, do you have a connection to a program here, and is there, you can find out what that career path has been. And all 5 of us, we all are mothers of boys. So those boys and their strong mothers, right? Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and briefly introduce. You'll hear more about their backgrounds as they talk about their stories. But starting with Dana Johnson, she's a 92 grad, and we have it up here just so to keep you track, and I kept them in a row so that you could keep track of who they are. 92 political science founder and chief creative director of Baby Star. Now, I met Dana in my second career, well, I guess it was still my first career, but when I was at Perkins Coie, which is a law firm here, and she was working at Borders, Perrin, Noriander as the media director. So we've known each other for over 10 years, I think we figured out. So, but before Borders Perrin, she worked at White & Kennedy and in DC, and she just launched this company in 2004. So that's Dana for you tonight. And then Jan Bottcher, 77, business management, senior vice president of CB Richard Ellis. I met Jan in my first job going up the Wells Fargo Tower 20-some years ago, and because she worked in that same building. And then we found out that we actually are neighbors. So Jan and I have gone back more than 20 years, I think, now. She has spent 25 years as the office leasing and sales holder at CB Richard Ellis. And I just read in the Business Journal, because I was getting caught up this week, that she was named top producer for her company among 4 men. So in one of the top 5. So that just came out. And then in the middle here we have Sarah Mensah, 87, journalism, telecommunications. She's the chief marketing officer of the Blazers. And we met around 20 years ago when I was at Davis Wright doing marketing, and she was at Kink Radio. So we've known each other for about 20 years as well. And I recently read that she received the Business Journal's Orchid Award for Outstanding Women in Business. And then if you don't think her job is busy enough as the Chief Marketing Officer of the Blazers, I was looking at her volunteer work, and she launched the Portland chapter of the National Association of Black Sports Professionals. She's on the Portland Schools Foundation, Urban League of Portland, and United Way. That's a pretty busy woman. So thank you for being here, Sarah. And then Karen Niemi is a graduate from the architecture program in '79. She is the principal and executive team member of Mulvanny G2 Architects. And I had to remind Karen where I met her, but when I was back at Davis Wright, she was sitting across the table. She was pitching her interior design firm to the design team that I was sitting on at Davis Wright. And then I think we connected again at Perkins Coie. And then it turns out she grew up with Julie McKenzie, who works out here in Astoria, Oregon. So anyway, those are the connections that I think are always so fun to make, and part of, what I'm always trying to teach the people that I'm working with and counsel them is that you need to maintain connections for a really long time and think about these relationships that are great relationships. You never know when they're going to come back around. I would have never thought I would be doing this and bringing these people from my life over the last 10 to 20 years together. So I encourage you to maintain these relationships and to connect with people. And if you're a person in transition, to go back and look at who are those relationships that I had 20 years ago. What are they doing now? Let's reconnect, because people always want to reconnect. It doesn't matter how many years are there. Women always want to help women. So I hope that's something that we can all get out of today. So with that, I have some questions that I prepared, and then again, you'll have an opportunity to ask your questions as well. And we'll just go through the panel. So do we all have our mics on? We'll have to pass them around. And this is being videotaped and audio taped so that people who weren't able to be here can see it. And so when we do get to the point of having you ask questions, everyone's going to be so proud that I remembered to do this. Please speak into the mic. Okay. So anyway, starting with you, Dana. You're on. Okay. So what direction did you expect your career to take when you were in college?
When I was at U of O, I was very into politics, still am very into politics, and my dream was to go work in Capitol Hill. And so I got an internship to go work for an Oregon congressman. I went out spent 2 years in D.C. And loved it. It was fantastic. But I missed Oregon. I'm from Oregon. I love the mountains. I love the beach. And it's really hot and humid in D.C. So I decided that I was going to come back and try to apply what I did. And I couldn't find a job. I couldn't find a job in politics. It was a non-political year. So I temped. And I temped at Wieden & Kennedy. And that's how it started. So the message I think I wanted to share was like, never be afraid of taking an opportunity that you think that isn't exactly what you want to do, because it can lead you to so many other places.
Yeah. Thanks.
Same question?
Yeah, same question. I think everyone wants to hear your different perspective.
I was kind of a late bloomer. I didn't know what I wanted to do, even as I graduated with a degree in management. I just honestly didn't know. I knew I didn't want to do what my parents did, and so I was just open for opportunities and kind of fumbled around for a little bit. And it was only a couple years later that I got into sales, but my first job out of college was tending bar. And I had a lot of fun. You know, the market was terrible. The business environment was pretty awful at that time. And so it was a great opportunity to meet people and play around with that. But my dream, which I never really tiptoed into that world, was to work in radio. I really wanted to work in sales at a radio station, but I never got there. So just be open. Yeah.
Well, speaking of radio sales, that's a perfect segue for you.
Although it wasn't really where I felt like I ever would be. When I was in college, I was a journalism major, and what I wanted to do was be a muck-rucking journalist and you know, and uncover, you know, all kinds of stories about corporate greed, and, you know, I was going to change the world. And so, you know, it was just one of few people that, you know, actually wanted to be a print journalist, and, you know, thank God that didn't work out. That would be horrible right now. And so shortly, you know, thereafter, I was fortunate enough to get an internship at KGW Television, where I was able to write and produce for TV, and actually a person that I love to give credit to. I talk about him daily. Again, we mentor each other wonderfully as women, and I encourage everyone to continue to look to the women in your life to help support you. But in my experience, it's been also men that have really helped in my career. There was a person that intervened and convinced me that in order to really have the experience that I needed to have, that I needed to get some sales experience, that folks that really wanted to understand business, that you needed to have some sales under your belt. And I was very opposed to that. That felt very, very base to me to think about sales. It wasn't intellectual. It wasn't about writing. It wasn't about, you know, it wasn't anything that I had, you know, perceived myself to be. But he was just adamant that I at least give it a try and have that experience so that I would understand it. And lo and behold, I started at that sales, radio sales was where it was, and really never left the career for the next, well, I consider myself still in sales. So that's really how it all started.
Boy, my turn. This probably sounds bizarre, but at a very early age, I knew that I wanted to do design or architecture. My father wanted to be an architect, but he graduated in the heart of the Depression. He was 15 of 15 children and no way could go to college. I'm 100% Finnish, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but there's a lot of good Finnish architects and designers. So I knew when my third grade teacher said, great drawers should read more. So I took some architectural classes in high school. Actually had a very good professor or teacher at that time that was very instrumental. And I applied as a senior to University of Oregon in the interior architectural department, and was one of 50 that was accepted. So I was very lucky and graduated a year early, and I knew this is what I wanted to do. So it's great. And I always say, if you do something you love every day, it's not work.
Nice, very nice. So as you're thinking about those early years, so go maybe a few years into it, there were some key decisions that you made. Some of you made some changes. So what are some of those key decisions you made early in your career that led you to where you are today that you think has an impact? Some of you touched on this, so if you just want to elaborate a little bit on that, and we'll start with Jan this time.
when I did start at CB, after 8 interviews and aptitude testing and all that, they said, we want you to be an office broker. I thought that sounded kind of boring. You know, I thought, gosh, I want to be an industrial broker. If I'm going to break through, because there were no women in 1983 doing commercial real estate. It was a real fraternity. And so I thought, I want to do something totally different. But I did as requested, and I'm very grateful. It's a lot more interesting than warehouses and dock high loading situations, as Karen can certainly attest. So a couple years into it, I had an opportunity to work for one of the major hospital providers and find some office space for them, and it was actually clinical. And that was really the opening of a door that has never closed for me, and now 20 plus years later I do a ton of medical clinics, specialty operations, and a lot of hospital work, and I adore that. And no one else really focuses on it because it just takes a ton of patience to work with physicians and get through the process. But that was really helpful for me, just to be open to opportunities and find a niche, that little niche. And all those men out there wish they were doing medical because the market's been, well, you've probably read those headlines, you know about that. But the healthcare people have to continue on. And even though they're worried about changes might come down, they can't sit still. So it's been very, very fortunate for me.
Early on in the career of radio sales, it's easy to work hard in sales and make money, and it was so exciting to go from making very little money to making more money than I might have in my wildest dreams ever experienced having made. And it'd be very easy to stay there, but about 5 years into the radio sales career, I had a call, and it was from the Trailblazers. And at the time, they were looking to expand their the side of the business that handles the advertising and sponsorship. And actually, one of my customers had recommended that they call and talk to me. I had no previous plan that sports was, you know, where I wanted to be. You know, at that point in my career, I had to go, okay, basketball, they wear shorts, right? I like that, you know. So that's about as, you know, that's about as much my affinity was for, you know, for sports and understanding what they represented. And it was funny when I sat and talked with the Blazers about the opportunity. I loved the direction and the vision that they were talking about, where they wanted to go with the organization. But the money that they were offering at the time was half of what I was currently making at the radio station. And so it was really hard to think about, wow, I really liked everything that they sounded. It felt like one of those places that for me would really be a fit and would be more of what you would describe as a passion. And but there was all this money that was in place. And I would just say to folks, I think that there's an impression out there that your career should feel like this ever progressing stages of you know, getting positions that pay you more money and give you more seniority and more opportunity. And what I found is that really, if you're willing to take the risk and sometimes actually go backwards, it can help you go forwards faster. Mm-hmm. And that's certainly the situation for me, was to take an absolute 50% pay cut and move into a position that I absolutely knew nothing about, and at the time sort of a very big unknown, because back then sports teams really didn't have very evolved, you know, sponsorship business operations. And so I guess I would just say to people that, you know, that I look back on those types of decisions that I made early on in my career that were risks. And one of the reasons why it was easier to take risks at that time is that I didn't have a family. I wasn't really established yet. I didn't have, the risks were easier to take. And so in the earlier stages of your career, if you can take as many risks as you possibly can afford, sooner or later something's really going to pay off.
I think if I look back, I think there were 3 things. My first job, right, I graduated December term in '79, and I didn't go to Europe like all the architects do, so I'm kind of shooting myself that I didn't do that. I went to work on January 2nd. I had already interviewed with firms in Dallas, Texas, and in Portland, and my parents obviously were in Astoria. And I chose, and I was fortunate to get hired in the 80s. As Jan knows, that was the worst real estate environment at the time. I went to the largest firm in the country, Skidmore, Owings & Merrill. And for me, that was like going to master's school. Yeah, they had in-house structural, mechanical, and electrical engineers plus architects. So it was like a training ground all over again. The next year I got made an associate, which was really cool. And then 2 years later, they closed the office. That was not so good. So they said you can move to LA and run the interiors group in LA. And I, growing up in Oregon, I thought, I went down there and thought very seriously about it. And I think the decision not to go down there was a good decision. The second good decision was when I was at Zimmer Gunsel Frasca, I got called by another firm, and they said, we've been watching your career. Would you like to come be a principal in our firm? And that was, you won't believe the year, but that was the first woman principal in Portland, Oregon, in an architectural firm. It was 1992. That's how long it took Portland, Oregon, and the architectural profession to actually realize, okay, there is some buying power and some business sense, because if our clients have women on their selection committees, don't you think it'd be a good idea for diversity to have, at least a woman partner in our firm? And so I joined Yost Gruber Hall, and that was a very good decision. I grew a lot, was exposed to a lot of different diversity of projects, including embassies. And then the best decision of my life, because I can know my colleagues are out there, I can see them all, is when Mulvanny G2 approached me. And Mulvanny G2 has, when I joined them, over 500 people in 5 offices around the country, including an office in Shanghai. So, and I just found out today that Swen knows that I'll be going to Xi'an in 2 weeks to do a major design presentation. And I'm scared to death. So that's kind of the 3 turning points in my career. So it's been a fun ride.
Well, mine's a little more simpler, I think. I look back when I first started at Wieden & Kennedy, and there is a lot of sink or swim when you're first starting out. And employers are wonderful, but you have to get the work done. And at Wieden & Kennedy, they have 4 rules, and the first rule is the work comes first. And it's like SEC football. It comes first above family. It comes first above your weekend plans. Your friend's getting married, that's too bad. We have a pitch on Monday. So I saw a lot of people come and go because they were like, I'm too busy. I have other plans. I'm doing this and doing that. And what I learned early was to say, yes, I'll be there. You can count on me. And I worked my butt off. There was a period from January till August where I worked every day, but it was worth it. I kept on going up and up, and it was good, and I eventually decided to leave because there's too much work to get done. But when I said yes to opportunities, I was able to sit in meetings that at 23 years old with Dan Wieden right there, talking about opening up the Tokyo office and what were they going to do, what resources do they need. I did PR for Wieden & Kennedy for several years. That was an exciting event, talking with Stuart Elliott of the New York Times, sitting with Dan Wieden and Dave Luer, because I said yes. They were happy to have me. So that's one thing I would encourage you to do is you might have dinner with girlfriends planned, but if someone comes in and says, hey, we need someone on this project, all hands on deck, I would encourage you to say yes, and it will just take you other places. Yeah.
Great answers, you guys. You really are thoughtful. Okay, so now I want you to think about the times that are kind of hard in your career. So when those obstacles have come in the past, or maybe you're dealing with something now, we all have them. So what are those obstacles, and how do you, each one of you, overcome those in your daily work? Sarah, can we start with you this time?
Sure. Plenty of obstacles working, in the NBA, and the biggest one that comes to mind just straight off the bat is that our industry is just so dominated by men. And so when I started working at the Blazers, there were really mostly all men that were working in the same positions that I was, and it was hard. One of the biggest obstacles was to be taken seriously. There were numbers of occasions when I'd show up on an appointment as even the key salesperson there, and we worked in teams at that time where there'd be a service person and a salesperson, and if I showed up with a guy that was a service person, their orientation would always be straight toward the guy. Or even today, most recently, when when I attend the NBA president's meetings, you know, I show up at the president's meetings, and one of the other presidents, it was the first time I'd been at the meeting, so it's probably about 3 years ago, comes up to me and says, you know, there's no more coffee in the receptacle, and I, you know, and so it's.
So did you get up and get it?
No, what I said is, oh, okay, well, we'll get right on that, is what I said to him, because I knew later on when he saw that I was sitting around the table with the name plate there that he'd feel really stupid, which he did. But, you know, and so I think, you know, and I think one of the biggest obstacles that I've experienced is my own brain is being able to still stay at work and have those types of things happen. And there are different tracks that you can take. You can let that beat you, and you can let that stew inside of you, and you can let that be the excuse or the reason why, you know, you can't go any further. Or you can say, okay, that's just my thing. And, you know, there's been a lot in my life that's happened that has been, my son has a disability, you know, my father moved here to this country that didn't speak the language, and I've had to just sort of recognize that everybody, you know, male, female, everybody has something that they kind of need to overcome, and so I no longer allow myself to see those obstacles that come up and, you know, let them allow me to have an excuse for why I can't continue to keep going. So I now consider it a game, and when things like that happen, which they do every day, they continue to do so now, it's funny. That's what I tell myself, is that it's funny, because if I allow it not to be funny, if I allow it to be really serious, it's going to take me down a different path and not allow me to be focused and really positive and productive on what I'm trying to get done.
That's a good point. I think that's where I'd go on it. And you said it, one of life's challenges is that we'll always have problems. And if you don't have problems now, believe me, you'll have problems. And they will come, and it's how you deal with those problems. Be ready, expect it, and if you really do what you think is right, don't let it take you down, and keep trying. And same thing, I mean, when you run into the guy stereotype thing, and Lord knows in architecture, how many women do we have in our firm? Not very many. And we're going through a Women in Leadership initiative right now, which I think is really good, raising the awareness of some of the male architects in our firm. But I guess I would say that, similar to what Sarah said, is that don't let it, you know, ruffle your feathers. And I'll probably get sued for some of my language in the office as opposed to the guys. And find the right mentor. I did that immediately at SOM. I went out and found a male mentor that was very good at what he did. And you change your mentors as your career develops, and you need different diversity and different opinions. But if you can hook on to the right male mentor, that will get you not only pave the way, but you will have someone watching your back, and it will really be a supportive person that you could go to when these things come up.
I come from a family that had a family business, and there was a definitive decision when I was about 10 that would be the generation, or my generation would not be in that business. So my parents tried to do a really good job of educating us on our own businesses and different things, you know, different pursuits that we were doing. And so for Christmas one year, we all got this book. It's called Who Moved My Cheese? And it's literally like this, it's like this thick. I mean, it's like, you know, and we're all like, who moved my cheese, you know? And it's all about the whole idea. It's a great book. I refer to it all the time. It's about how you're doing business. And now that I run my own business, you know, we were doing business wonderfully up until this last year. And for us, the baby business was booming. It was great. The phone is ringing, the faxes were coming in, orders were coming in. We had people begging to represent our line. And 2009, starting in actually 2008 of September, things started to really slow down. We had a decision at that time. We got approached by a large chain called Babies R Us. It was a big decision at that time if we were going to sell to them or not, because the thought was the boutiques won't buy from us anymore. And since they were such a big part of our business, should we take the risk and basically go in bed with the big chain people? So I referred to Who Moved My Cheese, and I'm like, I've got to think about this book, because this business is evolving and changing, and I've got to evolve and change with it, and I've got to make good decisions for our company. So we decided to do the deal. We're in with Babies R Us, and if we wouldn't have done that, we would not be in business right now. Because last year was just a really difficult one on us. And so this little book is really...
Who moved my cheese?
Who moved my cheese? But the whole thing is, like, when you're working on what you're doing now. But you have to always be site planning for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months at a minimum to figure out where you're going to be moving. And it's hard when you're trying to move everything you're doing that day. Goon Denhart, who's a dear friend, and she started Hannah Anderson, which is a wonderful children's and women's apparel company, and she sold it a couple years back. She said, you walk in the office with the best intentions and a long list. She's like, you're lucky if you get 10% done. And so you have to have a sense of humor about the 90% that doesn't get done. So.
Well, I would say working in, again, a male-dominated area, not quite as much as Sarah's, but you really have to put your ego aside and roll with it. You know, you will hear silly little male comments and things that could just make you nuts, but you just have to forget it on your way home and go back the next day and like nothing happened, because that's how men operate. And so if we take that emotional thing out and just go for it, they'll be so surprised when you sneak up behind them, and then when you get out in front of them, they'll never know what happened. So really just leave the ego at the door and the emotionality thing that we can all slip into, but it's not very wise for your long-term growth.
Thanks. Okay, now that we've talked about those struggles, Karen, will you lead us off on what's the best part of your job?
Well, we talked about passion, and the travel now is going to be really exciting. I've been traveling quite a bit lately. As choosing architectural design or the design profession, I always say it's like being a docent in a museum where the paintings change every day. And one day you're working on a corporate headquarters, the next day you're doing a retail space, the next day you're doing a medical facility. So it's like having all of these images change every day, and actually being able to design something that will be around for 50 or 100 years. So it's a very soulful job that you're really hopefully improving people's lives, whether it's medical or we don't do a lot of residential, but your office environment where you work 10 hours a day. It's very rewarding to go back to some of my higher education projects and really see, in fact, this is one of my jobs, the White Stag building, is to go back and see people using the building, enjoying the building. There's nothing worse than you design a space that's empty. So that kind of reward is very compelling, and I think architects join this field because of that. It's not because of the money, I know that. So I think it is like being a docent in a museum.
I like that.
Dana? Best part of your job?
What I love about is that I can design, work, and work with creative people. That's what I just adore, and it's fun, and to work in a group that everyone comes together, and you can go in with one thought, like I know exactly what I want, and what you come out with is so different and almost magical that the transformation of creativity is really so exciting. Yeah.
I have some very unfun parts of my job, negotiating leases and dealing with that piece, but the really fun part for me is when I understand what someone thinks they want and I need to go find it. And so they'll describe a few parameters and a geographic location, and then I have to expand it all, because you never find that perfect bingo. It's not out there. So to create the expectation that, I'm going to enhance what you've shared with me and then come back with some different alternatives that you might not have thought of, and then just really search it out, turn over the rocks and kiss the toads and see what you can find that they wouldn't have thought of and has some potential. So that's the fun part for me.
It's great to hear people talk about passion. The passion that I'd say that I have at this point is to have recognized what an important role I think that sports has in our community. I just think it's such an important role. And during this particular time where it seems like, you know, the society is so fractionalized, people are polarized in their political opinions, they're polarized in their approach to, you know, life on so many levels. To me, sports feels like one of the last places that people can come together, regardless of what those differences might be, and, you know, high-five each other and hug each other and, you know, believe in something at the same time. I mean, in Oregon, we're not even doing that around church that much. And so for me, one of the most gratifying and fulfilling things, you know, has been figuring out a way to be a part of the team of people, because by no means has there been only one person, but there's been a team of people who have really been convicted that the Portland Trailblazers are going to prevail and that we're going to be something that Portland and Oregon can be really proud of, and that that the team can now really start to even take on a greater role of representing our area and helping to inspire people and give people an escape and something to really look forward to and represent us. And so, you know, the favorite part of my job, as crazy as that is that all of the different initiatives that we get to take on every day as we, you know, go out to renew and sell tickets and find partners in the community and hear people's stories about when the first time was that they actually went to a game, and, you know, what that means to them, because it's so much more than a business transaction. So that sounds kind of hokey, but that's really what I love about the
Got to
job.
find that joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have one more question. I'm going to combine the last two, and then I'll open it up to the rest of you before we have our reception. So I'm going to combine my last two questions. So I'd like to hear from you some of your tips for navigating, whether someone's just, you know, starting out in their career or they're in transition. What are some career tips that you have to navigate that path that might be similar to yours? And then what is your hope? So you can either answer both of them or one of them. So what is your hope for women as they pursue their careers of interest? So those are the two last questions. So you can either combine them or pick them. And Dana, you're on.
I think the informational interview is like, is the best thing that's out there. What I did after I came back from DC was went around, made a list of people that I thought I'd like to work for, and I called them up and I say, hey, I would love to come and take 20 minutes of your time or buy you a coffee and learn more about your core business and, you know, learn more about what you're doing. And it was fascinating to me. I met the most unbelievable people, and I still have great relationships with a few of them. And so it opens your eyes to what the possibilities can be. You might think that one profession is very exciting, but then after you meet with somebody, you're like, oh, that's really not so exciting. And so I would do that and spend some time and just go out and meet with some new people. And a lot of people are also looking for, they might say, oh, well, you know, we're not looking for anybody now, but my buddy Joe, who does this, is looking for somebody. So then you're off to have coffee with Joe. So.
And to follow up with that, don't be timid. Don't feel like you're putting people out in a big way. If you call once and I don't call you back, don't think it's you. You know, we're busy people, and just call logs get mushed up and eaten by the dog or whatever. So call again and just be nice, just be persistent, and you'll be surprised at how responsive people are. Everyone wants to help someone. So that's a really important piece to remember.
Can I ask a follow-up question on the informational interview before you go to your next point? Because this is something that I am a heavy promoter of. What is the appropriate amount of time that people can wait between following up with that phone call? I get that question all the time.
I'd say 7. What would you say? 7 days?
Yeah, I'd say a solid week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As people are out or things change or whatever, but yeah, definitely.
And maybe to even look to an alternative way of communicating. So you called once. Oh. So to look towards maybe after the first phone call, maybe send them an email and say, I would love to still take you out, for coffee, and look to that, because a lot of people are really responsive on email, but not good on the phone. I know that I'm an email much more than I will get on the phone. So I'll be like, sure, great, Kettleman's 11 o'clock, and then I'll know that I'll put it in my iPhone and it'll be booked. Yeah.
Let's see, your 2 questions.
Any hope for the future for women in careers?
Do you have anything for that? We'll come back. Okay. Piggybacking on what you said earlier, just be ready to work so hard. Nothing is going to come easy, especially when there are lots of people looking for very few opportunities. So be very prepared to work through lunches and just stay focused. Be a self-starter. Don't be coming in at 1 minute after 8. Come in 15 minutes before 8 o'clock. You know, just show everyone that you are really focused on this job, no matter how foolish that job might seem to you, that job you wanted so much. It maybe doesn't start at that level where you'd expect it and you'd hoped, but just work hard, and not just the other people think you're working hard, but really take it to, use your creativity, use the good stuff that you learned in Eugene and maybe just your life experiences, and really push that little creative envelope and nose around to find out how you could do something a little bit better or different. And people very much take note of that and appreciate that. So that will get a lot of attention.
Mic. I think I'm fired. I already broke the mic. Yeah, I mean, I would dovetail on that. I just feel like women need to find their voice. You know, I'm really tired of sitting in meetings and knowing that there's just a brilliant woman sitting across the table from me and having a meeting go on and she's quiet. And most of what's been able to happen for me is, for whatever reason, you know, I learned that actually people really value hearing your opinion. The way business works is that people put ideas out there. They commit to an idea, they say something, and they don't qualify it with, this is probably really stupid, but, you know, have you ever thought about this? You know, it's that qualifier that I think a lot of us as women can bring, and we don't even recognize that we're doing it. It's like we're apologetic for having an opinion, apologetic for having an idea, apologetic for asserting something. So I would just say again in that if it might feel risky, but I would just encourage everyone to sort of try to find what it is that you're really thinking, because I know everyone's having thoughts in their heads about ideas of what it is that you're doing that could be done differently, or if you're in an interview and you don't have a job, it's questions. Mm-hmm. It's not being afraid to ask the question that you have and feeling like the question might be a stupid question, because you know what, I think the more questions that you bring to the table and ask, they actually show who you are as a person more when you have a question, and people love to be able to answer those questions. So I feel in my career like I just am, you know, craving, you know, the opinions and the direction and the voices of more women. It's how things come into balance better. And, you know, again, working in an industry with a lot of guys, they can just be really dominating and really wanting to, you know, it's for the guys, it's all about, you know, well, here's what I think, you know, and I see a lot of women waiting and being kind of patient and waiting for their turn to speak. And so I guess there's a book that's out that we all need to read that says something like act like a lady and think like a man. And that part of it is go ahead and give yourself the permission to be assertive. Because it's going to feel a little bit, there'll be something for all of us, for whatever reason, there's some little voice in the back of our head that says it's unladylike to be a little bit assertive and to speak up about what you want or what you think or what you'd like to have happen or what you've noticed. And men take notice when you're willing to do that. They may, think you're a bitch, or they may complain about you being controlling, but guess what? That's what's going to get you noticed. So that's what I would say.
When I thought about this, because we got a primer on some of the questions, I went back to our Women in Leadership initiative. We've collected a library of a number of leadership books for women, and we even had the partner of Deloitte and Touche come talk to us in Bellevue, and she was a very, very, very powerful woman. So I did a little homework. So this is the results of the 6 steps for success. And this is from PricewaterhouseCoopers, Deloitte and Touche, and 900 other companies around the country. So if you want to take notes, and you've already heard some of this. Number 1, Establish your personal goals and needs. Number 2, build your confidence and positive attitude. Number 3, take opportunities when they're offered to you. Be open. Number 4, which I already said, was get a mentor that's going to stretch you. And number 5, actually build your profile and make networking a priority, which is what Linda said. Networking routine and make it a priority. Get out there and schmooze. And last but not least, and this is true for all of us, make sure that your skills stay current and relevant, and continually develop new skills and competencies. And you have to sometimes or always reinvent yourself. And I think Dana said that earlier. So those are my 6 steps for success.
Thanks. We'll figure out a way to post that. Maybe if you guys become a fan of our Facebook page, we'll get them up there. That was a perfect way to end the panel questions. I wish I could take credit for that orchestration, but it was brilliantly done, you guys. Okay, so we have some time for a few questions from the audience, and then we'll have time to network afterwards. Okay. So Emily, do you want to come get my... question?
I just have a quick question about how you guys balance the family aspect, that you guys are all very successful and have worked your way up, and it's very impressive to see, and I'm just curious how you've balanced the family aspect of your career and your life.
I will say it's the hardest part of my day every day. It is. Today, I couldn't go pick my son up from school because I had a commitment that came up that had to be taken care of right then. So the unexpected part of we run our own shop, our own business, and that when problems happen, they have to be taken care of in a very quick, very elegant way. So I do try to take my kids to school every day. That's a commitment. Some of my friends say, oh, why are you trying to do that? You should just have your nanny do it. But I'm like, I still want to be a mom because 3 nights this week I've worked till 8 o'clock. So I get home so I can put them to bed. And Lori Gaffney, who's my old boss, sitting right behind you, she knows how hard we worked. And she and I spent years together at Wyden Kennedy. And every Saturday we were there almost together. She raised her boys, and I watched them grow up. And she took Saturday morning to go to have breakfast with them. And I always remember that because we had to work. And so you just have to find the balance. But it's the hardest thing I do every day.
I found I did homework when they did homework or after they went to bed, but it is a major challenge. So you have to make certain that there's some kind of boundaries. I was always focused on getting a little workout in before I went into work, pack the clothes in the car the night before, so that was kind of my time. But really the evenings I made sure that they're available to my kids, and fortunately my husband's a great cook, so that helped a lot too.
Well, you don't do it yourself, that is for sure. You have to, and again, this is another thing that I think, it's hard for a lot of women. You got to ask for help, and just, to have the kind of success if you want to really explore your passion and be in your career again. I think it's about entitling yourself that that's okay, because part of it's just getting over the guilt of the fact that you won't be the one that is there to do all that you might want to do as a mom. And so part of the sacrifice is balancing your needs to follow the passion that you have in your career with the need to follow the passion that you might have in wanting to be a mom, and finding alternative ways to make sure that both needs are met. And so that's really the balance that's struck, because you really can't do it. It's no one can be a superwoman and be able to be the perfect mom and be there. And every day I drop my son off for to school, and there are other moms that are there that have made cookies, or they're volunteering in class, and and I'm just screaming in and out of there late for my 9 o'clock meeting, and but I have a really wonderful team of people that is around my son, and so I have to recognize that's a choice that I've made, and that it's okay, that he's good. I've made really good decisions for him as well, but it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, and I'm fortunate. I have a stepson who's now 18 and out of the house, but and I think it comes down to your partner, and it's you really have to share. And I watch people in the office, and I'm looking at Josa and Emily and others that they have partners, and Swen, that they really share that responsibility. Okay, it's your turn to go pick. It's your turn to the soccer. It's your turn to this, because again, there's only so many hours in the day. So I think if you have a agreement or a relationship with your partner, I think that's the half of it.
Choose wisely.
Yes.
Ask that beforehand.
Another question?
Hi, good evening. Ali Battaglia, 2004. My question is, when you're looking at someone's resume, what are like the top 5 or the most important factors that stick out to you to want to actually interview that person in person?
And maybe we'll get just 2 people to answer that so that we
I
can
don't need to
answer
interview
more
this.
questions.
I look at a couple things. First, interestingly enough, I look at their education. I want to know, are you a duck? If you're a beaver, you go right in the garbage. Yeah, exactly. No, what I'm looking for is what the major was and the level of education. Because lately we have been having a lot of success with people that have advanced degrees. And so I look there, and then secondly, I look at the work history, and I look at the sort of the tenure and the types of jobs. And interestingly enough, somebody that has a really long history of a lot of different jobs they've stayed there maybe a year or 2 years is actually a red flag to me. So I look to see if people can have what I would call a quality experience in any one given job, where they've really been there long enough to have really enjoyed it. If I see somebody that has, short stints at a lot of different places, that's generally a red flag. Those are really the things. And then I really feel like, in today's age, for us, resumes are really just sort of the first start, and we have filters. People apply for jobs on a website. There's a filter that's there, so your resume will just be filtered for the key things that we're looking at, and so it's a long time before anybody really looks at it, and so it's really going to be you that ends up, if the resume passes the filter tests, and you get to the place where you're having all the interviews, and there's panel interviews and individual interviews and all those kind of things that go on. It's really just the filter that the resume needs to pass.
Well, ours is portfolio based, so it's a resume, again, education, but also we need to see their portfolio, and we need to meet them to see if they can actually talk and present, because more and more people by people, so we're seeing that client relationship. It's really important that someone is relational and has the ability to meet our clients and are good listeners. So those are the things that we look for.
Thanks. I'm curious if you would comment on, when you look back and you look at the decisions you made, would you make any different decisions as you've gone through your career path?
I definitely would. When I first got out of school, I did, as I shared with you, didn't have a clue where I was going, so I fussed around in restaurants for a couple years. And my first business interview, where I was really getting serious, the manager almost didn't hire me because he thought I wasn't focused. He didn't think that I had the tenacity and the drive. And so I almost missed that window. So I'd say, be kind of intentional about what you're doing. Sure, have some fun for a little while and enjoy yourself, because it's probably a freedom that you may not have for a long time. But maybe be doing some classes or doing some independent study where you can indicate that you were using that time a little bit wisely and moving towards something that would be more goal-oriented.
My parents always talked about college as your ticket to ride. You need your ticket to ride. And all I wanted to do when I graduated from U of O was move to Sun Valley and be a ski instructor. That's all I wanted to do. That's still all I want to do. And they were like, no, you need to go do something, you need to move someplace and go do something, and so take a focus. And so I was able to get this internship in Washington, D.C. and start my career out there. But that was the biggest thing is get your ticket to ride and then go, in agreement with what you're saying, go try to get work quickly. You can get a great job that has, a couple weeks vacation, and you can earn vacation. A lot of people right now are taking vacation over pay raises, and you can get some really good travel in that way, which I think is super important, just to travel, to expand your mind. But important to just kind of move quickly. Other questions?
Hey, Linda, thanks for putting on this event. My name is Julie Williams. I was wondering, something I constantly encounter in my position is sort of this dichotomy with being a team player versus getting credit where credit's due. And I was wondering about your insights about being a humble leader.
Well, I guess I'll take a stab at it. And I think one of the other panelists said teamwork, creativity, and collaboration. And for me, the collaborative nature of our business is what really I enjoy. Because good ideas can come from anywhere. And it's the old 80s hierarchy where management were senior and they told you what to do. And we're not at all like that. And now that you have, I was talking to Linda, 5 generations in the workforce. Millennials, Generation X, Y, and the boomers, and then the post-boomers that are working longer because they can't retire. How do you get all those generations to talk to each other and to collaborate for the good of the whole? I mean, the sum of the parts is just so important to get opinions from other individuals, and I think the project or the creative result will benefit.
And I think, we have a lot of that. We have lots of teams at the Trailblazers and lots of groups that are sort of, on one way you would think that they would be competing against each other because they're all selling something or they're all working. And that's a question that I think we struggle with every day. How do people come off not cocky, and how do they, if you have your idea and somebody else has their idea. And I think from the standpoint of, future leadership, I think that and it's something that I would never suggest that I had mastered on any level because it's something that you have to work through every day. It's that if ideas can be fostered or if things can be sparked, and you can create an environment, and you can do this even on a team where you're not necessarily the manager, but if you can create an environment where people feel comfortable of bringing their ideas forth, and those ideas result in something that the business then is able to use, and you can sort of learn to kind of take stock that you might have contributed to helping create that environment, as opposed to necessarily needing to feel like you had the idea yourself. It's just a different way of looking at, how things ultimately get done, and what it just feels better. I think a lot of us, I call it a ta-da thing. There's this thought that a lot of us have out there, and I think we get it from academia, because in school they teach you that you're going to write a paper or you're going to do a project, and then you're going to come and present it to the professor, and you're going to get an A, B, C, D, or F. And that's just not how it works in business. Nobody likes you if you get an A. If you work on something and you go to all your peers, ta-da, look at me, I'm so smart, here's my idea. It just doesn't work. And I see a lot of people that come out of school and they're thinking, God, I have all these ideas or these thoughts, and no one's liking me. I'm not really fitting in, because in work it's a much more collaborative process, and people tend to work together in teams and are kind of cross-functional about how you say, well, what about this, and somebody else says, what about this, and you really start to understand that it's in that way of working and learning and growing that you really can get to the great idea. And so I think, you ask the question, ask yourself, how am I working with others to hear their ideas? As opposed to, how can my really smart ideas get noticed?
Another question?
Lauren, class of '03. I had a question, and Dana, you brought up the point of handling a problem with elegance. And I'm recently back in sales, and in sales a lot of times we're problem solving. But sometimes there's a problem that comes up that I can't solve. And I guess I kind of wanted to get some insight on how do you break that bad news kind of with elegance, and I'm sure you all can elaborate on that a little bit.
More than anything else, I think the client with the challenge wants to be heard. So I never use the P word, ever. You will never hear me say problem when it comes to being in front of a client. I always say, well, that's a challenge, and make certain that you give them every opportunity to express all their feelings associated with that. And then just do the best you can, as sincerely as you can, to deal with it. You know, it's likely if someone's really worked up, it just takes a little time. But if you continue to stay close and look them straight in the eye as if you really heard them and you're really going to do the best not to let that happen again, they'll be so appreciative and respect that so much that a lot of their oh well feeling will surround that other negative feeling that was on the surface.
Many of you have mentioned mentors, and as students graduating here in 2010 of June, I wanted to know where you found those mentors and how you began to create that relationship.
Okay, I'll go first. School, they're professors that you respect and that want to kind of take you under their wing, and work, obviously, in order to advance and learn and grab the golden ring. That's where I found the mentors very important. And they helped me progress quicker through my career and gave me opportunities where perhaps if I was the silent one, they wouldn't have. But I've never been shy, so I just glommed on to the best person I saw that could train me and take me to meetings, and made a commitment that said, okay, I see potential in you. And there weren't very many female mentors. So it was several times in my career they've been male mentors. It's been great.
And they could be family friends, you know, people that you've respected. You don't really think of emulating what they do necessarily. It might be an industry that's totally different. So that perspective might be really helpful. And that was a really valuable thing for me. And a CPA, you know, a family friend, and I knew he was from my church, taught his kids in Sunday school. You know, I never really thought I certainly was never going to be an accountant, but he brought a great perspective to me. So just be respectful of other people in other industries that might not be all that important to you, but provide that bigger overview.
I'm Swen Ho. I'm actually a colleague of Karen. Also teach here, so I get to see different generations of women in my day-to-day encounters. At Mulvanny G2, we, as Karen mentioned several times, we are actually in the works to focus on women leadership. And the research we have been able to gather is that in any situation, if you have about 30% presence of women in a board meeting or in a company, that's when women really have a voice that is going to be noticeable effectively. And all of you are individual champions in your very male-dominating world. My question is, how do you see a way to actually be able build that sense of effective urgency, where more of our community as women can actually be able build that kind of camaraderie, mutual support that is effectively be able to put in place. I think all of us are individual champions, but a lot of times when we try to collectively do something, all of us are challenged with family responsibilities as a wife, as a daughter, as someone who is in a firm that you deal with challenging situation with a lot of male colleagues. So when you ask them, well, let's do something together as women, a lot of women would see that they need to prioritize and not necessarily be able to so-called, we'll fight the battle together. They all have their own battle to fight. So how can we perhaps, in your situation, are you a loner in your own world that you're championing for your own cause? Or how do you think you would be able entice all of us to say, you know what, there's more if we all collect together to build upon our pioneers who's been doing more loners work than us, and be able to plant the seeds for the younger generations and give them a leg up.
Wow, that's great. Great question, long question. You know, at the Blazers, we're unique. One of the things that I love to sort of think about is the fact that we're named the Trailblazers, and I think that that means that we have a unique role to play in sports on a lot of levels, blazing new trails. And one of the ways we're doing it now is we have an executive team. There are 16 people that are on that executive team, and there are 4 women, including myself, so there's 5 of us together that are on that executive team. And so for a sports team to have that many vice presidents, a vice president...
Is that why they're doing so well now?
I would like to say that it is. And 3 of them work for me and are in there, and I would say even the 4th, every single one of those women has a vice presidency right now because of a voice that I had at the senior team to say, you know, well, what about Tracy? She should be in that role. And what's interesting about that is that there really hasn't been resistance on the part of the men. Again, it's just that they're not thinking, they're like, well, gosh, that's a great idea, you know? And so, it's just, they can get in their zones where they're not really thinking that way. And so it's funny because I don't necessarily think of myself as a champion for women. However, what happens with the women that I encounter every day is I see myself inside of them, and I see, depending on whatever age that they're at or where they're at, it's that kind of compassion of being able to see sort of where they are and recognize that there were mentors for me. And to answer the question about the mentors, I didn't find them, they found me. It was people that were willing to sort of see that there was more maybe than I was even showing, and help try to find a way to sort of bring that out. And so I feel that it's important to pay it forward. So when I'm seeing that in other women, I know they're capable of doing so much more even than what they may be showing or may be comfortable doing right now. And I'm pushing that because that happens all the time for men to be able to do that, and suggesting some pretty crazy things about people's abilities to run departments and move in different direction. And it's working out because most of the women that I've given an opportunity to try to take on more responsibility or move into a new role have not let it down. They've just knocked it out of the park. And so it's kind of a fun little experiment that we're doing at the Blazers. Ashley knows. She's on our team and she's on her way up. So it's great.
I just wanted to say big thanks to Linda for putting this together, because it got me here to meet all of you and to be here with all of you. And normally I'd be, making chicken.
McNuggets.
So I say that it's when opportunity comes, to say, take it. And so that's when you approached me to be a part of something. I thought it'd be so much fun, and most to see you, and then to be a part of this. And I love the U of O. And so, look to opportunities where you have passions. A lot of different organizations, even if it's running the Race for the Cure or doing some things, and then you can meet more people, and then I know a lot of different people that do a lot of volunteer work for agencies that they support, and so then they start, you know, we need a new brochure, and so they'll start to put that together, and just look to opportunities that you have a personal commitment to or a personal interest in, and then try to participate.
Thanks. Well,
Around
we
it,
are
we're so
applause here.
fortunate.
Yeah, thanks you guys. Oh, pom-poms, very nice. I'm sure we could go on and on, but we do, hopefully all of you, the point of what we're also doing here today is to connect with one another. And we do have a reception for you to enjoy. But before we get to the reception, we're going to do the drawing. So please do connect with these people and ask them more questions, but we do have to stop at some time, I'm sorry. So, okay, so first, this is the lucky person that gets to go to, hi Lori, that gets to go to lunch with Dana. Lauren Mongrain from Emerson Hardwood Floors. Woohoo! Okay, so Lauren, your responsibility afterwards is to connect with her. And also, these are very busy women, so please give them a lot of time before that they can... Oh, no, not well, but maybe to set the date, but maybe the date. Some people have the playoffs coming up, so... Okay, and this is for Jan from Mulvanny. Oh my gosh, I really need glasses.
We make them very small so clients can't read them. Louay.
Yay, Louay. Okay. Stephanie Koenig, did I say that right? Stephanie, you're with Sarah. Yay. And then Kate Flowers. All right, Kate Flowers with Karen. Okay, so, and then for those of you, Julie, will you please bring us a bottle of Pinot Gris and a bottle of Pinot Noir? These are for people that only are of age. Are there any students here that are not 21, in case I draw one? Are you going to tell me? I will get in trouble and never get to have this program again, so I'm counting on you people. Alyssa Gavitt? Alyssa, did I say it there? Okay. Are you okay with Pinot Gris or Pinot Noir? Okay, all right.
Yes, yes. To be carded.
Willamette Valley Vineyards, the owner, the CEO is a Duck. So he helped us out with the wine tonight. So Jim, there's a big article in the Oregonian about him. And then the last person to get some wine is Kathy Hansen. And I know she's of age. Okay, so anyway, thank you. You guys, if you want more information on Alumni Career Services, there's information out there. Please feel free to visit with our panelists. And we still got 45 minutes of a reception, so please enjoy yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. You too. I'm glad you're having fun. How long have you been at the Blazers?
16 years.
16 years.
That would be fun.